What's up, gang? Kawaii50 here with another Fate Grand Order video. And gang, this one's going to be a little bit of a weird one. So I decided to be insane and look through every single character's statistics and the ranks of their noble phantasm on the FGO wiki. Because, as previously stated, I am insane. And I decided to figure out what are the strongest noble phantasms according to lore in Fate Grand Order, according to hard statistics laid out by the writing team. Now, a couple of qualifications here. So I looked specifically for servants to help tone down the list. We're looking for EX NP stats and an EX Noble Phantasm in and of itself. So that already eliminated a lot, but there were still way too many characters on this list. The EXNP stats both must be their starting stat, and the characters have to be playable. I'm also excluding super easy ones like Enuma Elish, Awakened Excalibur, and all that stuff, because that's obvious and that doesn't make for a super fun video. Also, let me elaborate on just two things. One, Manpig has helpfully pointed out pure power means nothing in the NASU'S. Characters win or lose fights based entirely on what the writers can't come up with. NPs that perfectly counter the opponent, what have you. And yes, I totally get that. But we're just looking at the raw stats. However, I appreciate the input, my friend. I really do. And also remember, I didn't write this. I wrote none of this. So if you can helpfully explain to me why Ishtar's Noble Phantasm is ranked lower than Kiyohime's, for example, I would definitely appreciate that, but it just is what it is at this point. So I have sorted the servants based on strongest Noble Phantasm as well as strongest aggregated stats and came up with the top 7. So I hope you all enjoy, and if this video is enjoyable, be sure to go ahead, like, and subscribe. Now that the super long explanatory intro is out of the way, let's get started. So the first one that hit the list is Sakamoto Ryoma, the Lancer version, though both versions do have an EX Noble Phantasm. Ryoma has the fantastic Noble Phantasm OU Conquer the Fields of Wadatsumi, which of course is Oreo. It can target up to 700 people and is an anti-army Noble Phantasm. As explained in Ryoma's Bond, Ryoma raises Amasaka Hoko to the heavens and offers it to the Black Orochi, shedding its skin and transforming into a beautiful white Orochi that resembles a divine dragon. The white Orochi of Takachiyo, clothed in the shining white mysteries from the Age of the Gods, wields a great power. With her stalwart physical barriers that cannot be penetrated by half-hearted attacks and her completely unparalleled combat prowess, this form may very well be the figure of a god from a new age. But instead of becoming a dragon that soars through the skies, she chose to race through the seas as an Orochi with a certain someone. Isn't that nice? But EX rank anti-army Noble Phantasm targets 700 people is just Let's Summon a Dragon. It's easier to see why this made the list, though this ended up topping Karna based on stat aggregation alone. I am surprised, but there it is. Next up is Amore, the Roman goddess of love. Her Noble Phantasm is universal, uncompensated, infinite love. It is EX anti-unit, has a range of 1 to 99, and we don't know the maximum number of targets. Isn't that lovely? The greatest hits calling agape, universal, uncompensated, infinite love. A Noble Phantasm that envelops oneself in a shell of prayer, ascending and descending as the voice of a universal love made anew. A divine punishment attack, which comes not not from the god of love Amore, but from the love of heaven which illuminates the earth with unconditional and infinite love. By all appearances, it is an anti-world noble phantasm, but she insists that it's anti-unit. The love Karen refers to is the love of God, who loves all of humanity unconditionally and without compensation. In other words, agape. They also, of course, talk about Karen's Tiger Coliseum Morningstar, which is just, they kind of gloss over that. But most importantly, this is the love of God thrown down onto the opponent. Exciting, to say the least.
Answer.
Next up is Bazette, and it is in Bazette that we really start to see the double EXs showing up in both of those stats. Her noble phantasm is Hollowed Sea God's Sword, something I'm sure you've seen going around a lot of places. It's a counterattack noble phantasm that can only target one person, but Fragarach is powerful. The short sword granted to the sun god Lu by Mannanan MacLear, also known as Fragarach, I bet I butchered that, as well as the Retaliator and the Answerer, that which comes later cuts first. Far more badass. Specialized in countering as a counterattack formal craft, it wields the power to reverse the fate of an enemy's attack that would prove otherwise fatal. Now, where have we heard that before? A noble phantasm, same handed down through the Fraga bloodline as tradition carriers, which Bazette currently owns, which, since she is now a pseudo-servant for Mannanan, she can now utilize for more basic purposes. This does get a new description when you get Bazette to Bond 5 and use that third ascension. It becomes Fragarach Enbar. The Fragarach used by Bazette as sealing designation enforcer would take a month-long ritual to produce a single Fragarach. However, with Mannanan themselves present, they have vastly simplified this, allowing for the creation of multiple Fragarachs with ease. This noble phantasm is special, as Mannanan's property of being a sea god is imbued in it. As the original owner, it pivots to a form of Enbar, the magic white steed that gallops across the seas. Currently, Mannanan has transformed the white steed Enbar, said to be the incarnation of ocean waves and foam, instilling them into the form of the Retaliator, or in simpler terms, is the sea god-made bubble-formed Fragarach, basically fancy bubble horse Fragarach.
Yo. Amida Amidira, Heaven's Home.
Of course, Sessyoin Kiara made the list. Why wouldn't she? A lot of the extra servants are pretty busted. Kiara being no obsession with her Heaven's Whole noble phantasm. This is rank EX anti-personnel and has a maximum number of 7 targets. This is an anti-humanity or anti-grand noble phantasm. Beast 3's unique noble phantasm that breeds what is said to be an infinite number of demon god pillars within her womb. Jesus Christ, how horrifying. Her physical body is essentially limitless space and a pure land of paradise. Those swallowed up within it are torn from reality, their sense of self unraveled, their reasoning melted away. No matter how sturdy one's physique or armor is, such things are meaningless within Kiara's body. All things are reduced to a state like a newborn, which is later delivered. Oh god. In Beast 3, it is an actual whole, but those who fall inside experience orgiastic pleasure before they disappear, and are absorbed into Kiara while basking in ecstasy. This manner of death means the release from the suffering of reality, and depending on one's perspective, it could be a kind of salvation. That is probably one of the most horrifying noble phantasm descriptions I've read in a long time. Moving on. If you didn't think Summer BB wasn't going to make the list, you don't know me very well, because, well, I do love BB, but that's not the only reason. BB has the ability to cheat with that EX rank luck, so she was going to cheat herself on this list one way or another. Curse Cutting Crater is rank EX, has a classification of anti-world, and has a range between 9 and 999. This is a cursed hole that carves a chunk out of the world, used by Mooncell's BB from CCC. By expanding her own shadow, the surrounding area is converted into an imaginary dimension, and the world and all living creatures there are downgraded into low-level existences to become playthings of the ruler of this realm of madness. The normal BB's noble phantasm was a type of surgery that ridiculed her enemy while she was dressed in a cute nurse's outfit enjoying her own cruelty. However, this noble phantasm is a full-on operation that unleashes BB's abilities to their fullest. As the original heroine of horror, she strives to be like a final boss, unleashing its last strike while getting a reaction like, "Whoa, she's ginormous, scary, we're in serious trouble." After turning herself into an enormously powerful giant, BB easily rips up the ground and invades the world as if it were no more difficult than scooping up a spoonful of pudding. Apparently, the second divinity she fused with won't make its appearance here until her third ascension. And of course, when we get to the extra ascension, she fused herself with the second divinity, the second not being that of Earth, but an entity from the depths of space, one that should not normally exist in this universe at all. It can only be described as an evil god, a malevolent creature that seduces, torments, and destroys thinking things. Using this evil god's power, BB trapped the Hawaiian Islands in a cage of time. By creating an endless time loop of vacation during which she hosted a festival, she hoped to save Master from the terrors awaiting in their future. There's really no point debating the truth of her actions or motivations, or how the event ended for that matter. It comes down to this: BB will always be BB. The end. But did she really synchronize with the evil god? Maybe BB just thought she did. Like a placebo. Listen, I totally believe that BB ate an outer god, and that is absolutely horrifying to me. That scares the crap out of me, but BB's still waifu. Moving on!
滅亡と創生はこれ表裏一体。万物は流転し、死は生へと裏返り、された人の世に邪悪なる不要なマハプラーヤ。生きるべし。
Listen everyone, you knew Arjuna Alter was making this list. Yes, he doesn't have a double EX in all of his stats, but having A in pretty much everything I think is still pretty good. Let's of course talk about Arjuna's EX rank noble phantasm Mahapralaya, this being anti-world with a range of 100 and its maximum amount of targets being everything that exists within that range. This is the great sword of recursion that arbitrates the great disillusion. This is Arjuna's other power bestowed to him along with his anti-evil skill, which is the sword of recursion that arbitrates disillusion. When everything is set to meet its end, he is tasked to swing his sword to eradicate evil and the world. Once he swings the sword, the whole of the world is completely destroyed. Mahapralaya pertains to the moment Brahma dies and the universe comes to dissolution. In other words, it indicates Samvartakalpa. God, I wish I knew how to pronounce things better. Though even the peerless Arjuna is unable to wield the sword's full power once he is summoned as a servant. The fact is that its destructive powers are simply condensed and limited, and it makes it no different than Pashupada, and it seems Arjuna still thinks it's quite usable. I tend to think it's quite usable as well, Arjuna.
その通りよ。原始の地獄に帰りなさい。究極女神ビーム。
I honestly would have been more surprised if this wasn't at the top. Space Ishtar is insane. Look at those EXs in 3 of her stats. That's absolutely nutty. Of course, what is her noble phantasm? It is Erden Shigura Quasar. This is rank EX, anti-star. Its range depends on her mood, and the maximum amount of targets depends on her mood as well. Scary, scary. The crown that shines in the Origin universe, an alien planet invasion noble phantasm that incinerates all, created by converting and releasing the energy of the galaxy's spirit origin, a higher dimensional soul configured by summoning an ancient shrine called Bel Mana, said to be the proof of a goddess. Unlike Ishtar, Space Ishtar does not ride her boat all the time. What Space Ishtar does instead is rouse her shrine, the ball shrine said to have been constructed by a knot, which has an aggressive and ominous form, at least That's what's described. Eden means grasslands or plains in the Sumerian Akkadian language, and it is said to be the word from which the Old Testament's Eden is derived. Shugura is the crown in Eden, and it was given to Ishtar when she entered Eden. Quasar is a modern-day astronomical term reflecting a quasi-stellar object. Its enormous observed radiant energy, despite its location in a sector of space far distant from Earth, has led to it being called the brightest celestial body. This is essentially the equivalent of Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann attacking whatever exists on the field. I am not surprised at all that this ended up being one of the most powerful noble phantasms, period, and I'm sure you'll even agree with me from a gameplay standpoint. Anyways, gang, there's 7 of the strongest noble phantasms, according to stats and lore written by the people who actually write this game, in Fate Grand Order. Of course, remember, as ManPig said, the writers will find creative ways to sort of work around these things, but I was just looking at the hard stats and what people have set forth. In the end, though, whatever ends up making the story most interesting, as the NASU'S tends to be, will be what wins out. But why don't you tell me, what do you think is the most powerful noble phantasm in Fate Grand Order, and why? Go ahead and let us know down in the comments section below. If you want to talk more FGO, of course, my Discord server is always open. I want to give a big thanks to the patrons on Patreon, the subscribers and followers over on Twitch, and of course, you subscribers here on YouTube. Your responses are really the main reason I am excited to continue making these videos. So, thank you all for your support. However, you may be doing that. Anyways, gang, this is Kawaii50. I hope you all have a phenomenal day. I will see you all in the next video.